Hello, dear friends. Here we are. Yes, this is 21 days of inner empowerment, redefining money, based on the book Money by the spirit author Emmanuel through the medium Chico Xavier. This book was published in English last year, 2016, by the United States Spiritist Federation, where you can actually acquire your copy. Right now, we're also streaming directly from Kardec Radio, kardecradio.com. Your opportunity to be nourished 24/7. Did you know it? Yes, it is. And today we're studying chapter 8, Before God and Caesar. What an opportunity for us to gain tools for the very current times. This lesson of today is so fitting for these very days that you'll be amazed. But in order for us to really feel the scriptures and go through the therapeutic process, that is the main goal of these books, we really need to be open. Just like in that beautiful account of a monk and a master. The master, he had the master had several. Just a second, please. Okay, friends, here we are. An opportunity for us to make sure we are all on the same page. The master and the monk. One day, the monk, who was the apprentice, wanted to learn new lessons. So he got to the monastery and talked to the monk, to the master. And the master welcomed the apprentice monk. And he said, please come in, let's have some tea together. And you know, as any apprentice, they're talkative, and he was like, and he started talking about this and that and the other, this and that and the other, this and that and the other. Meanwhile, the master was listening and warming a cup of tea for each one of them and pouring the water onto the teacups. And suddenly the apprentice monk looked at the master and said, Master, it's spilling off of the cup. And the master said, yes, you're right. If you really want to learn something, you need to empty yourself out. To learn the lesson today, we are being invited to learn something new by emptying ourselves out. How do we do this? We empty ourselves out when we exercise that beautiful virtue, the ultimate virtue of all times, humility. When we allow Emmanuel to teach us things we don't know. So the first question we ask is, how can I understand more deeply the lesson that we're going to be given? Okay? Before I open the chapter, let's say hi to our dear friends. Hello, Leia Severo and Sabine Beck. And Valéria Benfica, Andrea Torres. Beautiful hearts, beautiful souls. Adilson Araújo. Angelita de Paula, hello. Rihanna Williams. Sorry, Rihanna. Fred Gouveia, hello. João Bosco Barbosa, beautiful hearts to you too. Ready, friends? Very fitting. Today is February 11th, 2017, and we are ready. Emmanuel, let us visualize Emmanuel, feel the teacher that comes directly from the Master and is willing to relay lessons that can transform our lives for immortality. Before God and Caesar. In our usual relationship with Caesar, symbolizing the political government, let us not forget that the world belongs to God and not to Caesar, so that we are not parasites of the social organization in which we're called to live. Many believe themselves fully exonerated of any liability to the administrative power of earth, simply because one day they pay taxes to the governmental machine that leads them and then demanded of them sacrificial services over a long time. We must always remember that we are of God and not of Caesar, and that Caesar has no means to replace God's assistance amongst us. Therefore, the law that expresses the determination of the On High counts on our constant participation in goodness if we want to achieve the victory of real progress. Examining the issue in these terms, let us hear the voice of the Lord speaking to us in the acoustics of our conscience and seek to execute our duties without expecting that Caesar will meet our expectations or will visit us with its stings. Work is the regulator of life. Let us cultivate it diligently, using resources that we have in consolidating the best for all around us. Assisting others is the recommendation of heaven. Therefore, let us assist others always by aiding an unfortunate fellow, by protecting the spring that is threatened by dryness, or by planting a beneficial tree that tomorrow will speak for us by the wayside. We will all be accountable before divine providence regarding the goods that we are temporarily lent. Thus, without constraining human authority, let us exercise understanding and kindness, patience and tolerance, optimism and faith, putting our fires of rebellion or criticism wherever they are, stimulating instead the planting of values that are likely to establish harmony and prosperity around us. It is not worth giving Caesar some coins each year and every day covering it with accusations and reproaches. Let us give God what belongs to God, while offering the best of us in favor of others. Thus, Caesar will actually be able to sustain us and serve us today and always in the name of the Lord. Ooh, how do you feel about it? Yes, how do you feel about it? This message is consoling. This book was psychographed in 1986. And it came to life in English last year, 2016. And in this book, we'll find precisely the lessons that we need for the current times. And many people may read this and still claim, oh, but that message is for that time. No, no, no. This is an immortal lesson. This is a lesson for us each and every day. But you know, there are many people whom we find out that are very outraged about, and they think it something as being very personal to them. The political scenario of the world, or of the United States of America, or of Brazil, etc. They take it so personal. And if you dare to tell them it's not personal, they think you are alienated. No, we're not. But let's stop projecting our conflicts, our anger onto somebody else. Observe that most often than not, people who are deeply outraged about the political government, and I'm not talking about the incoherencies, we're just talking about that personal feeling. They have severe issues with authority, including their mother and their father. Because when we are at peace within, we may look at others, not agree, be willing to peacefully protest, but we don't feel it's personal to us. Not because it doesn't hit us in any way in form, because everything has consequences to the collective and to the individual. But we do not feel indignated, and we don't feel anger, because we are following the teachings of the only master and guide, Jesus Christ, that taught us a different way. Give Caesar what is Caesar's, give God what is God's. So if you and I, we ask, is there room for me to be indignated and outraged and angry? I say, go quickly, pick up the book Action and Reaction by Andrew Lewis and read the first chapters. And I'm going to tell you, don't be surprised when you get to know that one of the strategies of the inferior spirits is to imprison you and I and the whole world in a constant outrage, in constant fear, in chronic indignation, so we won't be productive in the good. Did you get it? Why they are using some people to make us feel indignated and angry? So we are annulled. You and I. Are you going to choose to annul your own power by being indignated? What a difference can you make when you're indignated? That alone does not change anything. Indignation does not pertain to the repertoire of those who follow the good news. Look at Jesus. And he was not alienated, politically speaking. But Emmanuel explains to us, what do we do regarding the political government? This message is literally a message for us about the current times. Whether you are in Brazil, whether you are in the United States, in Russia, in Syria, anywhere in the world. Because it has been worse than this. In our usual relationship with Caesar, which is symbolizing the political government, let us not forget that the world belongs to God and not to Caesar. Emmanuel is so practical that he begins right away telling you, look, are you afraid? What are your feelings regarding the current times? And he's saying, if your case is feeling fear, feeling that it's chaos, etc., he's saying, don't worry. Be happy, because the world is of God, not of Caesar's. Not of Caesar. But he's saying that so we don't become parasites of the social organization. You see the reason why he's telling us that? He's saying, let us not be served. Let us serve. Because if the world is of God, You and I need to roll our sleeves and serve. He's going to begin and end this chapter with that final message. Caesar is supposed to serve us. And if you think the world is of Caesar, you're going to be waiting. I'll be waiting for Caesar to serve, so I'll become a parasite. And he's saying, no, no, no. The world is of God, meaning roll your sleeves and serve and work. Be indignated, being angry, putting lipstick and going to the streets, march while you're seeing lots of homeless and doing nothing to console them and relieve their pain, really is not making much of a difference. It's not about marching or protesting, but really in your zone of influence, doing what you need to do. And sometimes the closest people are lacking your presence, my presence. How many of us see in spiritist centers people who would benefit from having you there to cook a meal for them? Having you and I there to say a prayer with them. But instead, we think of the homeless who are in the streets far away. But we forget to be simply an instrument of service to those who are the closest to us. Are we gonna wait for the worst case scenario to realize what we need to do? And he's saying here, many believe themselves of any work towards the political government. And he's saying just because we pay taxes, and hopefully we did, and hopefully we do. But we demand from those who are in the political government a great deal of sacrifice. We want them to be subservient. We want them to be altruistic, thinking of the needs of others. And the question for us is, do I think of the needs of others first? Exactly. Melissa is saying the world needs action, and action in the good. Let us be the change, really, by being the change in your zone of influence. Right? Yes, let's say hi. Erika, how are you? Publio Lentos and Malu, how are you? And now Amen is very assertive. We must always remember that we are of God and not of Caesar, and that Caesar has no means to replace God's assistance amongst us. Therefore, the law that expresses the determination of the On High counts on our constant participation in goodness if we want to achieve the victory of real progress. So not only the world is of God, but we are of God. And as such, we need to ask ourselves, how can I help more? And the answer would be very easy, by thinking less of your needs, less of my needs, and more of people's needs. Beginning with the people in my house. That's the exercise. The center of the world is not us anymore. When we leave that center and we become, somebody who is around, helping altruistically, we're doing what we need to do. We're aligned with God. It's not about what I need any longer. Oh, I need to sleep, I need a shower, I need to eat, I need this, I need that. How about asking people in our lives, what do you need? What can I do? Sometimes a small thing Like they're watching TV and you think maybe they need a blanket to feel warmer. Would you like that I bring you a blanket? Those little, very small actions of kindness towards one another is what makes a difference. This weekend, people are celebrating Valentine's Day. The appreciation for the bonds of affection, whether a friend or a spouse, it doesn't matter. But how can we cherish it? By actually paying attention to the details. Somebody put a t-shirt and you look at them and say, can I fix it for you? Or they change a little bit of their haircut and you say, wow, I like this way. And when you're eating, before you start eating, you give them with grace, the feeling that without them you're not going to start eating. You look at them and say, I'm going to wait for you. And they're like, no, go ahead. No, I'm going to wait for you. That movement of gentleness, that movement of kindness is the key. Because you're of God, I'm of God, we're children of God, not of Caesar. Let us hear the voice of the Lord speaking to us in the acoustics of our conscience and seek to execute our duties without expecting that the political government, Caesar, will meet our expectations and will visit us with its things. And he's saying exactly what it is. How many people look at the current political government and they are like, oh, they're never gonna do what I believe in. Or, oh my God, they're gonna harm us. And he's saying, instead of expecting any of this, hear the voice of God speak in your conscience and fulfill your duties. How can I listen to the voice of God in the acoustics of my soul? How? By making silence? Silence. This is actually the latest book by the Nobel Peace Prize Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh. Silence. And he talks about it, the importance of making silence. And when we read books like Jesus in the Home by Neil Lucio through Chico Xavier, Good News by Humberto de Campos through Chico Xavier, we learn that Jesus was the master of silence. He knew how to be silent. Do I know how to be silent? People are talking, arguing, and we have a feeling like, if I don't engage, I'm not part of it. No, you're part of it anyhow, because we're all interconnected. And people do not need to give you the consent that you exist for you to exist. You exist irrespective of their indifference to you. Some people are so hurt because they are not noticed by others. They're so hurt, so hurt. And we don't understand that we are of God. We have the attention, the constant, unbroken bond of attention from God. Unconsciously, we have the attention of everybody too, and vice versa. And it's not personal to you or me. Like Don Miguel Ruiz, the Mexican physician who became a bestseller when he wrote the 4 Agreements, he really shared with us something that he observed. Do not take anything personally. People do what they need to do because they need it, not necessarily because of you and I. And most often than not, people project. So many people, again, we're going to repeat, they are indignated with Caesar, the political government. But they are furious and angry, not because of the government, but because they have deep conflicts inside of themselves. Because I can look and say I agree or disagree without feeling like, oh my God, like somebody told me one day about the Brazilian political system. I called this person on New Year's Day in Brazil, and this person told me. And I said, what is your main resolution for the new year? And the person said, I want to see the former president of Brazil in jail. That's my resolution for 2017. And I was like, why is it personal to you? I know, politically, it's personally to all of us, the collective, but not that personal, to the point that it's your resolution. It can't be your resolution. It can't be. Why? And we're not saying this out of respecting people's rights. People can do whatever they like. But we're talking about why is it so infuriating to you? Like Raul Teixeira, one of the very well-known mediums in Brazil, in the Spiritist Brazilian movement. He one day was deeply angry and indignated by something that was happening in the political scenario in Brazil. He was watching TV and he was feeling like infuriated. And then his mentor, Camilo, came along, the spirit mentor, and asked, what's going on, Raul? And he said, don't you see what's happening here? Look what people are doing. Look at this government. And then Camilo shared with him that the reason for his deep indignation and infuriating feelings was because in the past he did similar things, did not forgive himself, and now is projecting that anger he has for himself onto others. How many of us? Why some people become so deeply affected and others don't? Being that many of those who don't are deeply aware of the scenario. They are not alienated. Look at Jesus. Have we ever heard of Jesus knocking on Caesar's door, which was not heaven's door, right? Caesar's door, and saying, hello guys, sorry, we are the ones who constructed the planet. We're here to tell you that you're really doing a bad job. You're destroying what we have created with a lot of effort. I'm so sorry, but you're fired. Yeah, no, we've never heard of Jesus saying that. Why? Because he said, we came here for the sick, but the sick who know they are sick. Because there are many people who are sick, they don't know they are sick, and they don't find doctors, right? Many people are sick and they don't knock on doctors' doors. Why? Because they don't think they're sick. And Jesus came for those who know that they are sick, that are permeable, that are ready. The other ones, leave them alone. Love freedom. People have the freedom to choose. There are limits in itself, but he's saying, work is the regulator of life. Let us cultivate it diligently, using resources that we have in consolidating the best for all of us. Work meaning be useful, Let us be useful. Hello, Daisy. Hello, Rose. Rose, hello, Rose. Thank you. Where do you think you are regarding the story between Caesar and you and God? How do you feel about it all? Let us pay attention to the types of feelings we have. Of course, we do not agree with things that are not human or humane, but Emmanuel is clearly telling us that the Christ message is of such that we need to work and not demand anything. Truth does not demand, it transforms. Says Jesus to Bartholomew in the book Good News, chapter 8. He says, Bartholomew, truth does not demand, it transforms. I cannot be so proud of myself, have this huge ego, saying, you are doing a bad job and I am great, I know what I'm doing, I know I'm great, but in our everyday lives we just mind our business, but we want the political government to be so altruistic. Where is our altruism? Our altruism is so important. You know what altruism is? The definition depends on your thinking and my thinking. According to the dictionary, altruism is defined by thinking of others' needs before our own needs, even to the point we would sacrifice our own needs. Where do you think you are in that regard? Do you think we are altruistic when we once a week go there and deliver food for the homeless? 1 hour? 24. Let's do the math. 24 times 7, 168. Let's say we spent 2 hours with our friends, the homeless. We're talking about 166 hours during the week that we spent for our needs. Because our family is our need. Work, our need. Home, our need. Really, we spent 2 hours giving food to the homeless or doing anything else, and we think we deserve heaven. And we go home and we think we deserve heaven. Yeah? Truth does not demand, it transforms a Jew. So thank you for reminding us. But he's saying, work, be useful. Am I being useful when I am sharing a post and reproaching the government? How am I changing anything by doing that? I'm not changing anything. Oh, but I'm making people aware. No, you're not. Because many people, when they're very stubborn, they don't read your posts. They don't read my posts. They don't want to follow us. They don't. And we respect that. That's okay. In the current times, if you want to be followed by zillions of people, it's easy. Put loud music and say bad words the whole day, you're going to go viral. That's the world today. Oh yeah, there are good things becoming viral that also go viral. Not necessarily they are the most common, but that's not our goal, right? But when we're useful, naturally we're vibrating harmony. And when we vibrate harmony, we create bonds of harmony because we're entering this constructive mental currents. And we are making a choice. I believe in the good, like Jesus said. And I don't wait for Caesar to serve me. I work because the world is of God. supposedly, I'm not going to wait for anybody to do what I want them to do. I'm going to do what I need to do and what I have to do. Assisting others is the recommendation of heaven. You see, in one message, work, assisting others, altruism. Let us assist others always. Not like 2 hours in 168 hours a week. In 168 hours a week, we serve 2 hours. And we demand that heaven give us high salary, protection, happiness. By the way, that's the next chapter we're going to study tomorrow. As long as we go through this one. And he says, by protecting, by aiding the unfortunate fellow, by protecting the spring that is threatened by dryness, by planting a beneficial tree. This is the second time in one book that Emmanuel talks about planting a tree. In a time of deep concern about climate change, which is, it's not to be discussed, period. Science proved it, period. Ignorance is actually gonna tell us that it doesn't exist. But when you are moving around February, which is winter time in the United States East Coast, and we have 50, 60 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, we don't need anybody to prove any longer we're experiencing it. And let's plant a tree. And Emmanuel is not saying this poetically. He's really recommending, go, plant a tree. Trees are divine beings, and they are needed. So plant a tree. That's a good activity. Plant a beneficial tree that will speak for us by the wayside tomorrow. And he says more. He says work, assist others always. And he now gives us the consequences if we don't. He's not threatening us, but this is a very mature therapeutic conversation. He's saying, we'll all be accountable before divine providence regarding the goods that we're temporarily lent. Without constraining human authority, let us exercise understanding and kindness. Without constraining human authority. Pause for a second. Let's go back and tie it up to the beginning. In a scale 0 to 10. Shall we do the therapeutic quiz? 0 to 10. 0 to 10. Where do you think you are regarding the figure of authority? Do you easily obey and feel subservient? Or do you have a hard time actually doing so? 0, it's like a scale because it can't be very absolute. It's relative to your feelings. 0, like, I don't like obeying authority at all. And 10, I love and I respect authority, the position of authority. I think when people are there, we need to respect no matter what. Where do you think you are? Don't reply here, but ask. Let us ask. And he says, instead of demanding the government, let us exercise understanding, kindness, patience, tolerance, optimism, faith, putting out fires of rebellion and criticism wherever they are, stimulating instead the planting of values that are likely to establish harmony and prosperity around us. If I display rebelliousness, criticism, what am I planting? Rebelliousness and criticism. But, no, look at the Master. It's not about me. I'm learning too. But look at the Master. Jesus. Have you ever heard of him going after Caesar and demanding anything? Have you ever heard him inciting the people to be rebellious or criticize the government? No, me neither. And you know what that means? It means we should follow through. Oh, but we're going to accept? No. We're going to plant goodness. And that's not accepting. Because if you accept, it means you're not going to do anything. No, you're not accepting. You're planting the good. I'll be planting the good. And that's action. That's how we peacefully contradict without being of contradictions. It's how we actually put ourselves in action. We're going to do the good. When people are like, oh, but no, I'm doing my part. And I trust that sooner or later they're going to do theirs. And if they don't, it's between God and them. Oh, but if the world is of God, you don't need to worry. Neither do I. The world is of God, not of Caesar. You are of God, not of Caesar. Let us not be parasites and wait. Let us not rebel against. Let us not criticize. Let us not only pray, but let us also do the good. It is not worth giving Caesar some coins and covering it every day with accusations and reproaches. If you and I accuse and reproach in whatever government in the world, not only ours, in the United States or in Brazil or in Australia or in South Africa or in Europe, it doesn't matter where we are. What is important here is we cannot be accusing and reproaching, thinking that that's the pathway. The people who are the senators, they have their pathway into that directly. You and I, we do the good, hoping that others do the good. Not because we know, but because we're learning. I'm learning. You're learning. Right? Let us give God what belongs to God, while offering the best of us in favor of others. Caesar then will actually sustain us and serve us today and always. You see what he says here in other words? That this government, the government in the world, is going to change when we change. When we give the best of us, naturally, we'll have a government that gives the best for everyone. If the government doesn't, it's a mirror reflection of who we are. No matter how hard it is to believe it, it is a reality. We're no victims. We have planted it, now we're reaping it. Let us plant new seeds to harvest them tomorrow. How? By working and assisting others always. By being useful always. No rebelliousness, no criticism. By doing the good. Melissa is saying, I totally agree with you, and that's why it's so hard for me to believe that part of the Bible where Jesus cleanses the temple, Jesus entered the temple and drove out all who sold the temple, overturned the tables, etc. in Matthew. My friend, I can't see Jesus upset. You know, it's just a matter of interpretation. It's what Kardec says in the book Genesis. He says, authority in itself is so impactant that it makes little children feel whipped. You know, having a child myself, I can tell you that. Little kids, they may feel when you raise your tone of voice or when you change your facial expression as if they're being hurt. And they're right, it hurts. For immature and young souls, Jesus' authority saying no selling in the temple hurts. Like many people nowadays in our spiritist movement, if you tell them many no's, they're gonna feel deeply personally affected. And it's not because the person was actually mad or angry. I don't think Jesus was displaying those animalistic expressions, Melissa. When you read in the book Genesis, Kardec has a different approach. He talks about the vibratory awakening that made people feel shaken up. It's always a matter of interpretation. Hello, Rudy. Yes, thank you so much. So he says here, if we want a government that is good and it helps us, easy. Let us do the same. Because then naturally, some of us are going to be there representing the people. Those who are representing, they represent really the people. Oh, but it doesn't represent me. Maybe today. But what about previous lives? If we're experiencing this today, we very likely have been there, done that, and we didn't know much. Now, we avoid the scenario, and others are just there. So the lesson today is uplifting. And go read the book, Action and Reaction. Don't fall trap to the strategies of darkness. They are trying to use the current scenario to annul your best by making you believe that your best is to reproach and criticize the government. Don't. Say, I prefer to believe the good, and I'm going to help those who are in need. I'm going to assist always. It's like a mantra. I'm going to be useful always. Because deep inside, I am a child of God. And I believe that I am of God, and the world is also of God. Let us repeat to ourselves Emmanuel's words. It's a mantra. Let us repeat to ourselves. He says, the world belongs to God. The world belongs to God. We are of God. The world belongs to God, and we are of God, not of Caesar. And the world does not belong to Caesar, with all the respect. But the world belongs to God. Feel it? Surrender, trust, and rejoice. Smile. Smile when your heart is aching. Smile when none is breaking. La da da da, la da da. And don't worry, be happy, because the world is of God, and I am of God, and you do too. Let us cherish this and study happiness. In 23 hours, God willing, we'll be back to study happiness together. Shall we? Let us exercise and rejoice.